Week 2 is here, JT. I know a lot of people had week 2 circled when the schedule came out for the Super Bowl preview, but we've got a huge game coming up because Allegiant Stadium, this is going to be an epic game for Monday Night Football. We will get to the Chargers and the Raiders. We will get to the Super Bowl preview. We'll sprinkle a little bit on Thursday Night Football. And of course, we will have JT's tip of the trade. But we start with what we have to. I mean, this date forever etched in history for a very, very heavy and solemn reason, of course. September 11th, there are many iconic sports moments now tied to this. And JT, for you, what a serious and significant day this was, obviously, to so many of us. But I know that you've got a story that just means so much, and I really want you to be able to share that here with us today.
Yeah, 24 anniversary of 9/11. I lost a fraternity brother at the top of Cantor Fitzgerald, James Joseph Kelly, a fraternity brother of mine from my same hometown, which is really heavy. He's from Massapequa, Long Island. When the planes hit, he was above the plane in the South Tower. He, at the time, had 4 daughters below the age of 5 years old, including twins. So let that sink in. A dad of 4 young daughters, 5 and younger, including a newborn. He perished that day. I think about him often. I definitely grieve on 9/11, and it's heavy. And it's heavy, and it's affected my whole life. I knew you when I was sitting in Sherman Oaks, California, in my bedroom with my son was born May 24th of 2001. And he was laying in the bassinet next to my wife and I when we turned on the Today Show and saw the towers burning, and my mother-in-law called. And that's how my day began. And it changed my life to this day. Never forget, I'm a New Yorker. And wherever you were on that day, we will never forget. So very somber day today. And there was a political assassination yesterday. A very difficult time in this country. And we don't talk a lot of politics or stuff like this when we feed and we live stream. But I think it's an important day today to remember those who lost their lives on 9/11.
Absolutely. And a quick sports side to tonight. President Trump will be at your Yankees. He'll be at the Yankee game tonight. And of course, that incredibly iconic moment from that World Series with George Bush throwing out the first pitch. Again, this city and my cousin Jack, someone you know very well, was down there at Ground Zero, and he was sifting through and spent many, many days at that address and that location, which will forever be changed for all of us. So with that, we make the very difficult transition, JT. Yes, week 2 in the NFL is a wild slate. And of course, week 1 gave us so many incredible moments. That Sunday Night Football game is one that'll go down in regular season lore, certainly. Monday night was even fascinating. But week 2, we've got a Super Bowl preview. But I gotta take some time here. I was talking to our good friend Damon Bruce yesterday. The Raiders could be 2-0 for the 6th time in the last 30 years. Now, that's, again, I mean, getting to 2-0 it's more difficult than you think. Not that many teams start. Even teams that are winning the Super Bowl aren't always starting 2-0. So it's not just a slam dunk that you start 2-0. But the Raiders have an opportunity to be 2-0, with a significant opponent for what's happening with the Chargers. And considering what the Chargers just did in Brazil, because I thought the schedule worked out brutally for the Chargers, because I thought when you get your Kansas City home game, when you're in a division with the Chiefs and your home game becomes a neutral site game, that is a massive disadvantage. Yeah. The Chargers have 2 games circled on their schedule every year with the Chiefs if they're trying to win that division. And that home game against the Chiefs, you would think, is their best opportunity to beat Kansas City. That game goes to Brazil, and yet the Chargers found a way at the end of the game. Even when they made a mistake to end the first half, they still found a way to hold on, to run out the clock, to not give it back to Mahomes and win that game. So you've got the Chiefs looking at potentially going 0-2, and you've got now the Chargers and the Raiders with a chance to be 2-0 in that division. That would be a wild swing. And through 2 weeks, we get a lot of surprises. But JT, I just want to set you up for Monday Night Football, where the Raiders dominate over the course of their history. But this game is in Vegas. The Chargers coming to town. You spoke to Max Crosby. You've spoken to quite a lot of people. Set us up on how this game is feeling for the Raiders now with a chance to be 2-0.
Yeah, a couple of things on this. First off, the Chargers might have played the best game in week 1. What was fascinating, I said on the air this week, is all the week one games weren't very good. I mean, the classic, which we get to Buffalo-Baltimore, Buffalo looked like garbage on defense, and Baltimore collapsed. So it was a great game, but both teams had flaws. So as I looked through, the Bengals beat the Browns. The Bengals were terrible.
Oh,
and they
awful
beat the
second half.
The Steelers needed a Jets kickoff return fumble. They didn't look good. The Jets and Justin Fields. The Commanders, 21 points against the Giants. Two teams looked great week one. The Chargers and the Green Bay Packers. Okay? So let me leave it at that first. Now, let's get to the Chargers. What blew me away about the Chargers' victory was the game plan. We all were led to believe that they were going to run. No, they threw it, which is what I've always said they should do. If I was the coach of Justin Herbert, I would throw every play of every game. He is elite. He's at next level. I know he's lost playoff games. He actually was the reason they lost last year to Houston. He's been a problem in big games. He's elite. So I thought they were going to pound the rock, shorten the game, and then maybe Harbaugh would win it late with a field goal. No. They had three receivers who had a big game. Herbert ran the ball, threw the ball. He was electric. Conversely, the Raiders won in New England. They had five receivers who caught 20-yard passes or more. So Geno aired it out. I think he was the FedEx Air Player of the Week. So Ashton Genty had a touchdown. Max played well. So this is a marquee game, and the Raiders need to win it because it's a home Raiders game, and it's their home opener. If it was the Chargers in week 7, we'd know the Raiders or the Chargers by then. We don't know these teams now. Pete Carroll's got to win this game.
It's interesting divisional play early in the season. A lot of coaches claim they don't like the divisional games early because they tend to think their team is better later in the season. They'd rather have that marquee matchup later. But look at what happened this season. You had the Eagles with the Cowboys. That's a marquee matchup in the NFC East. It's a week 1 game. The Chiefs and the Chargers, that is a massive divisional week 1 game that you've got to stare at. And now week 2 to have Chargers and Raiders in Allegiant. And I want to talk to you about Las Vegas, JT, because first of all, you had the premonition decades ago to think that Vegas would be the epicenter for sports. You wanted to get to Vegas. You knew you had to get to Vegas. Not only did you get to Vegas, you set the stage, and then the Raiders came to Vegas, and the Knights and the Aces, and eventually the A's. Okay, that's what happened. You started it all. You opened the floodgates for Las Vegas becoming the epicenter for the sports. I mean, for the world of sports and betting in sports, of course. But what is happening with the Raiders? Because this is a home field advantage over the course of the history of this league, that we identify the Raiders and the black hole as having a home field advantage that is unlike going to play in other places. And yet, I see it here at SoFi. Sometimes those home games, those tickets go to the opponent. And I can't imagine Monday Night Football not being about the black hole. If I see powder blue all over that stadium, that's going to feel really awkward.
Yeah, well, first off, there is no powder blue all over any road stadium, so it's not going to happen. But if it was, I've seen the Niners with massive crowds. Remember, we have the Cowboys. The Raiders have 2 Monday night games this year. Home opener Monday, and then the Cowboys. Okay, that'll be the test. And look, I've said this again. I'm not the ticket police. I don't go up to people and say, excuse me, like a police officer, can I see your tickets? Where are you from? Can I see your ID? People, this is year 6 for us. People still have not seen their team play in Las Vegas, the road team. So they're going to come. And what people need to understand on this, and Pete Carroll does, I've talked to Pete Carroll twice now. My interview with him this week is at Raiders.com. And Pete's aware of this because he did one preseason game. We only had one, and it was the Niners. And it was a sea of red. A lot of black, but a lot of red. So he's aware of that. And I'm aware of it because I'm voice of Raider Nation. I know this. So that'll change only when the Raiders win. Everybody's like, how's that going to change? Well, people are always going to freaking come to Vegas. People are always going to want to see their team play in Vegas. The only way it will end is when the Raiders win. And thanks for that stat about the Raiders not going 2-0, because if they go 2-0, they're on a very short week. Oh, thank you, Roger Goodell. Back east to play the Commanders. Excuse me? Wait, the Commanders are playing tonight, right, Sam? Okay, so let me figure this out. The Commanders are playing Thursday night, correct?
Yeah.
And then you're going to give them a home. You're going to give them a home game against the Raiders after the Raiders are playing Monday night. So let's do the math. They'll be off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They'll watch the Raiders Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 9 days off to play the Raiders after the Raiders already went to New England. Oh, they went on their farthest trip of the year because they're not playing Miami. Wow. Really? Okay. We're keeping an eye on this shit. We're keeping an eye on it.
It's a sneaky tweak, and a lot of people like to look at the miles traveled when you're checking out a schedule to say that a team got screwed. You look at the miles, but you're right, JT. It's about counting the days, because what happens is now with the international travel for games, they really want to the league wants to take care of those teams first, make sure that teams are off a certain amount of days if they've gone to London or Germany or Brazil, etc. But this is a wild swing with that amount of days as a difference, because normally what they'll do is they'll try to take two teams that played on a Thursday and then give them both a short or a long week coming off of that. But that is absolutely awful. So yes, huge opportunity. If you're going to circle Washington as a loss, as a road game for the Raiders, you'd like to be 2-0 going into that with a win in the division. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the New England game week 1, because I have been even more bullish than you. A lot of people claim, oh, JT, you're a homer for the Raiders. I hear that a lot. You know what? And I would say this much like Troy Aikman does an amazing job of being level, even if he calls a Cowboys game. You've done a great job of tempering expectations around the Raiders your entire career. You spent 30 years with this team. You understand what it looks like to go to a Super Bowl, and you understand sometimes that things unravel in a season. I'm the one who was bullish about this offseason. I said there's no way the Raiders won't look different. If you've got a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, a brand new running back that's supposed to take over this league, and a new quarterback, and you signed the best defensive player maybe in the last 30 years for this team, then your team is going to be poised to do something a little different this season. Through 1 week, that is correct. I don't want to overreact and say that 1 week is going to just multiply times 17 games, but that was impressive. It was Vrabel's first game coaching with the team that he is iconically identified with, and people have New England as a team that's supposed to take an uptick this season because they were excited what they saw out of Drake May last year. What stood out, if you had to say one thing, what stood out the most about watching the Raiders in New England week 1?
Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, here's why. He took a team into a hostile environment in the rain, had them ready to play, and made halftime adjustments. The Raiders, and I see our buddy Drew in the chat.
Yes.
When the Raiders travel east, they don't travel well. Pete Carroll is the greatest coach in modern NFL history to travel east. The numbers are insane. So he goes a day early where the Raiders were traveling in Antonio Pierce and McDaniels the day before. He said, no, we're going to follow the Seattle model. They did. Geno came out, threw a touchdown to Trey Tucker. It was gorgeous. Raiders were driving to go up 14-0. Geno threw a pick on a tip ball. And then the Raiders, the rest of the entire first half, were non-existent. Now, if Geno would have scored on that play and scored again, Geno would have threw for 450 yards. Geno was unbelievable, even with a pick. And Pete Carroll, who I talked to yesterday, took him in for halftime adjustments. Bingo, bongo, over. He's the best. He's better than Vrabel. He's better than Harbaugh, in my opinion. I won't say Andy Reid because of Andy Reid's recent success. Better than Sean Payton. We got the guy now. And the Raiders, Sam, they did not falter from their game plan. They didn't say, well, it's raining. Let's run the ball. Ashton Genty had less than 40 yards, but he got a touchdown. Very important. 5 receivers had a 20-yard catch or more, so they didn't shut it down due to the rain. Bowers had over 100 yards and 5 receptions. Everyone touched the ball. And then when the Raiders played with the lead, when they went up 20-10, what I thought was great, all of a sudden there's Pete looking at the clock, and you notice Geno's taking the play clock down to 1 second, something that hasn't happened around here since Vegas started. So completely a Pete Carroll victory. I give Pete Carroll a good chance with the game plan against Jim Harbaugh. We're not playing boy blunder, Brandon Staley anymore, where Staley would give us the game late. We got to go up against Jimmy Harbaugh.
So maybe the most memorable game of recent history with the Raiders in the regular season would have been the last time they went to the playoffs when they finished the season against the Chargers, JT. That was that game that was ultimately play to get in or out. Staley blew it. The game could have gone to overtime. Staley completely melted down in that game. That's likely why he's no longer the coach there and has an awful reputation amongst Chargers fans. But that was the last time. Remember, for those that think the Raiders haven't been there in a while, no. That team lost barely on the last moment to the Bengals team that ended up in the Super Bowl against the Rams. So it's not that long ago that you had a Raiders team vying for something special in the postseason. And I want to remind everyone, this game with the Chargers and the Raiders, as great as the rivalry is between the Chargers and the Raiders, can I say that it is now ticked up another level? You said it, Pete Carroll. And remember this, Pete Carroll and Jim Harbaugh, JT, we're talking NFC West with the Niners and the Seahawks, prime Crabtree versus Richard Sherman, playing for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And, of course, remember Carroll and Harbaugh, Stanford and USC. This is an awesome history between these two coaches, and now we get to see on Monday Night Football, it is renewed. The rivalry in the AFC West of note is Harbaugh and Carroll, and we get to see them go up against each other on Monday night. What is it to you? You mentioned Herbert, but what is it to you that is going to make the biggest difference in this game Monday night as we are now days and days away from it?
Great question. I have the answer. Running the football. Ashton Genty is the difference, and here's why. The only way you can beat Justin Herbert is watching his ass on the bench. Now, Geno can win in a shootout against anybody. So if this game goes 35-33, Geno can do it. This is not Gardner Minshew. This is not Aiden O'Connell. This isn't Jimmy G. And with all due respect to Derek Carr, Derek was good in a shootout when he needed to. This is next level with Geno. So no one's going to run away and hide on Geno without Geno going down with the fight. But this has to be Ashton Genty's running game. The Raiders' offensive line is still unproven. Pete Carroll told me yesterday when he decided to go with these five, Sam, it took him to the end of the preseason and the entire offseason to come up with the five. Well, those five gave up 4 sacks in New England, and they couldn't run the football. They couldn't get a push at the line of scrimmage. Okay, so we're going up against Khalil Mack. We're going up against a pretty good Chargers defense. Mack has owned the Raiders. He's owned the Raiders since he's left. You got to run at Mack. He's an aging Mack. He's very good. You got to run at him with Ashton Genty. And Ashton Genty is able to pick up first downs on second down. And what I told you before, 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5, we don't need Genty to make it 3rd and 1. Whenever the Raiders get to 3rd and 1, I lose my effing mind. Because 3rd and 1 means if they don't get a first down, they're going to punt again. That's all we've been doing since we moved to Vegas is punt. So we have to run Ashton on 2nd down, follow me, for first downs, not 2nd downs to get the 3rd and short. If Ashton's able to run, then Geno can go play action. And that changes everything. You got to put Derwin James in the box to slow down Ashton Genty. And then you can go over the top of Derwin James because he's kind of keying on Genty. So remember what I said. If the Raiders don't run the ball, they don't win. If the Raiders run the ball, they have a chance to win.
Well, 2 points and we'll move on. We'll get to the Super Bowl preview between the Chiefs and the Eagles, which I know the Chiefs are not looking to go 0-2 here to start their season. But a couple things. Now, Bowers, who obviously is the #1 target offensively when you look at this team, Bowers was a little dinged. And look, I want to remind everyone, the backup in Mayer is such a nice thing to have. If you look, there were key plays in that game where Mayer played a huge part in New England when Bowers couldn't get on the field. That's nice to have in your back pocket. What's it like? What's the relationship? There's actually a tight end room in Las Vegas. Not a lot of teams that have depth at tight end. The Raiders really do. It's special to see. There's not a lot of teams where you got 2 tight ends that are catching the ball the way the Raiders have it.
Yeah, they got Michael Mayer, who had a couple of big catches. And Michael Mayer coming out of Notre Dame was as hyped as Brock Bowers coming out of Georgia. Brock Bowers was a better player because he's more of a hybrid receiver, but Michael Mayer at Notre Dame was a monster. He had a personal issue last year, so he missed most of the season. And then the Raiders failed them. Josh McDaniels never got him the ball. Now Chip Kelly has got him the ball. Remember, Chip Kelly's making $6 million. That's the most money ever paid for a coordinator in the history of the NFL. Chip dialed it up pretty good in New England, right? Dialed it up pretty good. Now he's got to dial it up again against the Chargers. So, yeah, the Raiders, Jacoby Myers, look at what he did week 1. Had a monster game. CeeDee Lamb dropped 3 balls. 2 of them would have ended the game.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not saying that Jacoby Myers is better than CeeDee Lamb. I just told you he is. Then you got Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, who caught a touchdown. You have Michael Mayer. You have Brock Bowers, who got nicked up in that game. We'll see what happens. You have Dante Thornton, 6'5", who runs a 4.3. And then you got their 2nd-round pick, not their 5th-round pick, Jack Betesh, out of TCU, who caught a ball. Then you got Raheem Mostert, who didn't play in that game. And then you got Zamir White, who's their hammer. The Raiders are fine when it comes to their toys. It comes back again to the offensive line. If you can't block Mac and you can't run the football, then we have a problem. And I think Max will have a big game. Malcolm Kuntz got a sack on Drake May. Tyree Wilson got a sack in week 1, which is big. We took him 7th overall in the first round a couple of years ago. And then the Raiders decided, this is a really fun story. I think our audience will like this. My son played at Bishop Gorman High School in Vegas. They are the perennial best team in America other than modern day in your backyard, okay? My son was a backup offensive lineman. He won a state championship at Bishop Gorman, which was kind of a failure because they played for the national championship. So they won the state, and one of his teammates who's been at my house is Caillou Kelly, who went to Stanford.
Yeah.
I didn't think Kai would make it in the NFL. I didn't think – so he was a practice squad guy in the league. Pete Carroll brought him over to Vegas. He's starting. He's
Amazing.
Starting and had a really good game. So Pete's telling me, and he told me yesterday, I'm going to play my young players. I'm going to play my rookies. I'm going to play my undrafted guys. I'm going to play them. And that's the new era of Pete Carroll.
I love it. Well, I'll put a button on this game. I will say also in regards to the Raiders not being able to run the ball, I would say run defense was actually a huge positive in the game against New England also, because New England's very excited about TreVeyon Henderson. And that, as much as Genty didn't get to that 40 mark, neither did TreVeyon Henderson. And now we get to see Omarion Hampton against Genty, which a lot of people had in the draft as the first 2 guys. You mentioned, in fact, if Genty had somehow gone ahead of pick 6, that's what the Raiders were circling, was Hampton. So it'll be nice to see the 2 of them on the field Monday Night Football. Now we're going to transition, JT. Okay, if you want 1 point on that, yeah. If you can get 1 more point on that, yeah, in regards to Hampton, yeah. If you want to give me 1 more on Hampton as well, that'll be a great one also.
Yeah, 1 more on Hampton, 1 more. I will pick Hampton up at the airport and have him run the ball all game. And if Herbert doesn't throw it, let me make that point clear. If you want to do what every team in the league does and make a mistake and run it into a pile of men who are 350 pounds and run it into that pile, I will send him a gift basket to do that. I can't cover Justin Herbert. He's unguardable to me. He's a beast. Every time he fades back, my skin shudders. So if you want to hand the ball off, LA, into the pile, please do.
And JT, I just want to give you one chance to tell everybody the greatest throw you've seen. You've been watching, you've been with the Raiders 30 years. You've been watching football your whole life. And you say there is one throw by one guy that you would have as number 1 on your list of a play that you've seen in a game live. Please let us know what it is.
Real quick, this is something good to clip. The COVID year when no one was allowed in the stadium but me. So there was no one there. You could hear Tom Brady making the calls. I saw Brady, Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, everybody, the greatest quarterbacks ever assembled. Drew Brees played that year in Vegas. The next year, Herbert played, and he threw the greatest pass I've ever seen in my life. And I saw Elway live, Marino live. I've seen Montana live. My seats are on the 29-yard line. The ball's on the 27 right in front of me. Herbert fades back. He fades back to the 30. He's looking. He throws the ball from the 30 into the Raider end zone. There are 2 Raiders a foot apart from each other, couldn't get their hands up like this. Watch, if you're watching. They couldn't do this. And the ball went between them both, caught for a touchdown. I said, I've never seen a pass. And I saw Elway play. I've never seen a pass that perfect, fast, on the button. So Herbert blew me away that day. I've respected the shit out of him ever since. The good news is Herbert will give you a game with an interception. He will get sacked and the ball will come out. And I'm hoping Mad Max gets to him in this one.
I love it, and I'm glad you had a chance. For those that missed it, the Max Crosby interview with JT, you can get on the channel at JT the Brick as well, and of course at Raiders.com and on the Raiders YouTube channel. That's a great conversation, and you and Max clearly have a very real relationship over the years, JT. I love that. We're going to get to your tips of the trade in regards to relationships in this business, but I want to transition quickly. We'll spend a few minutes on this idea that the Chiefs and the Eagles are playing a Super Bowl rematch. Some people don't like to use that term because it's obviously a Week 2 game. It's not finishing the season. It's not the epic, ridiculous standalone Super Bowl, but it is the prime game on Fox for the afternoon on Sunday coming up in Week 2. The Chiefs lost their first game. The Eagles lost their best defensive player for spitting on Dak Prescott and found a way to beat their biggest rival in division in the Cowboys. But now the Chiefs have been thinking about this for 5 months. Now, you could argue the Chiefs were thinking about it for 5 months and then lost to the Chargers, but this Eagles game, I'd have to think it means something. I don't know that that matters in the league anymore. Does it mean something? Of course, there's a few players that aren't there, but the people that are there are Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, the people that know what didn't happen that day for them in that Super Bowl going for 3 in a row. And of course, for the Eagles, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts. There are significant pieces of that Eagles team that, of course, are still there ready. Cooper DeJean, Zach Bond, guys that played huge roles in that Super Bowl. I'll ask you, and then I'll have a quick opinion on it. But what do you see out of this game, especially because you are so acutely aware of what the Chiefs do, what they do at home versus on the road? What do you see out of this game with an Eagles team that didn't look their best Week 1 and the Chiefs coming off a loss?
Well, there's a lot there. Let me tell you first off, if you like a good sports conspiracy theory, I have one for you. How in God's name is Jalen Carter playing in this game? Okay.
Oh my God.
Hold on. He was ejected from a game where he started. He was in the game. 6 seconds ran off. The league comes back and says because he played in the game, that counts as a suspension. No, it doesn't. The suspension starts the next game. If he didn't play in that game and he was on the sidelines and spit on someone in street clothes, whatever you want to do, he should not be playing in this game. If he was playing against the Carolina Panthers or the New York Giants or Jacksonville, I promise you he would have been suspended. The NFL is a TV show. This is a rematch of the biggest television show of last year, the Super Bowl. They wanted him on the field. What BS is the fact that there's no accountability and basically this guy's allowed to play? He should have been suspended a game, which would have been this game. That being said, he'll play. Kansas City, Rashee Rice is out still for a while. Xavier Worthy went out earlier in the game with the shoulder. He might be able to play. We'll see. And Philly's at full strength getting Carter back. So normally I'd like the Chiefs in this spot. I don't think they're ready yet to go on their Chiefs run, which they will. I like Philadelphia in this game because I think Sirianni's going to wake them up. I think Carter's going to come back and say, I let you down. It's on me. I'm going to take this game over.
I love that you said that. I quickly want to get to your point about Jalen Carter and missing another game and further punishment for what happened in that Week 1 spitting incident. And I want to call it a spitting incident because there are two pieces to it. Yes, Jalen Carter spit at and on Dak Prescott. Ejected makes perfect sense. When you watch a replay of your team getting penalized, what's the first thing you want to say when you see the replay? Oh, how could they do that? The minute I was about to tell a room full of people, how could they do that? I saw what Jalen Carter did and I said, oh, okay, he shouldn't play. That's it. But later, after the lightning delay, NBC did a nice job. They showed that Dak Prescott spit in the direction of the Eagles as well. Now, JT, I can't take away what Jalen Carter did. However, if all that happened that day was Dak Prescott spitting, and that was the first thing that happened, if he had spit in the direction of the Eagles, and that was something that was found, that tape the league then got, would there be punishment for Dak Prescott in a league that can't stand taunting? Would there have been any discipline for Dak Prescott for spitting in the direction at and near Jalen Carter in that situation during a dead ball?
No, because you could claim that he was in a dead ball and he was spitting down, not at him, and he was in the huddle with his team, and a lot of guys spit golfing on the green. As they're lining up their putt, they'll spit. No, what Jalen Carter did was wrong, and the league did not send a message for that. The league did not send a message. And that's all I'm saying is that, look, I'll give you one more further. Lamar Jackson pushed the fan and threw him back.
Yeah.
When the F is that allowed? So the fan clapped one guy on the head, and then the fan clapped Lamar on the head.
Yeah, they got D-Hop, and then Lamar. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Okay, so Lamar's allowed to. I'll throw this at you. If that was a Raider quarterback taking someone and throwing him backwards in the stand, would the Raider quarterback been suspended? I think we know the answer.
I think so.
I mean, the league is not sending proper messages. Oh, you're allowed to throw a fan backwards if he kind of hits your friend. You're allowed to spit on someone and not miss a game. When Dak Prescott was spit on, he was spit between the Walter Payton Man of the Year patch and the C Captain's patch of the Dallas Cowboys, and didn't get anything other than his game check taken away from him. Well, you were kind of going to take his game check away from him because he didn't play. If he played and you took his game check away, maybe that's a message. He didn't play in the game. But I like your Eagles in this game. If the Raiders win, they're up 2 games on Kansas City after 2. Oh, boy. Oh, boy, that would be fun.
Well, when you're the Chiefs, you got no favors on the schedule because you're playing a first-place schedule. So it makes sense that the Chiefs and the Eagles are going to match up this season. And I see this as an opportunity for the Chiefs to get right. But you know what? Andy Reid has been 0-2 in a season where he's ended up in a championship game, and he could do that again. He did it with the Eagles a year when they fell behind 0-2. He could do it with these Chiefs, and the panic will be everywhere. And I would say if the Chiefs are 0-2, buy yourself a ticket at that point for Chiefs representing the AFC in the Super Bowl, if you can get that, because the panic will be everywhere and you'll never get a better price on the Chiefs to land in the Super Bowl, and you'll love that you got it at the best possible price. For this particular game, and I'll say this about Dak. Dak, if he was going to be suspended, it should be against the Eagles in their second game. And to your point about Jalen Carter, if there was going to be further punishment, it should be against the Cowboys in that second matchup. Don't make it about the Chiefs game.
Hey, Sam, normally I don't pay attention, but I'm a guest on your show.
Yes, let's go.
Right, I'm a guest on show. Can you get rid of this prick ASAP Hood Goat?
Oh, let's go.
Taking
Absolutely.
Personal shots at me and wouldn't have the balls to come up to me. Wouldn't have the balls to come up to me live or on my YouTube feed. So why don't we just get rid of him and put him in the penalty box? Thank you very much.
The guy's in the penalty box. See you later. By the way, look what we're doing here. We're talking football on a very special day in this country. Let's have some respect for everything that we're doing here. All right, everybody. Most of the comments.
Isn't it great how you can make trolls disappear? Because
that's amazing.
This is really important. And I've been known to slide into DMs and do this. I want to make something clear. Okay, I want to make something clear to everyone. The trolls, and Sam doesn't have many, I have more. The trolls who are cowards, who never, ever, ever do anything to someone's face, we will find you and we will expose you. Back to the football talk, baby.
Let's
go.
All right, JT, before we get to the tips of the trade, you did a nice job breaking down what we could see here with the Eagles and the Chiefs. I see this as a game where, again, if there's going to be a difference between the Super Bowl, maybe the biggest difference was, remember who the star of the Eagles was not on Super Bowl Sunday? Saquon Barkley. Saquon also had a pretty subdued game in week 1 against the Cowboys. Feels like perhaps 2 things could happen that would be different. Number 1, the Eagles didn't blitz once on Super Bowl Sunday and got to Mahomes the way that they did. I think Fangio is going to have to come up with a different game plan. If it works again to not blitz and sack him 6 times, congratulations. I just don't see that as the case. And I would say there'll be a different offensive scheme for Saquon to get him involved in a way that he really wasn't in the Super Bowl, because he ran into a brick wall every single time. But let's move to Thursday Night Football now, JT. We got a game tonight, and it's a pretty great game because you said that the 2 teams that impressed you the most week 1 were the Chargers and the Packers. The Packers took on their number 1 rival of note right now in the game, which is the Detroit Lions, because that's in division. And that game wasn't close. That game was not close at any point in time. The Lions looked out of sorts, and the Packers looked as good as they did the day 2 seasons ago when they smashed the Cowboys in Dallas in the playoffs. That's how good Jordan Love and the Packers looked. But Jaden Daniels is supposed to. I don't know why this is just, everyone just says because CJ Stroud had a sophomore slump, Jaden Daniels is supposed to. I don't know. I don't really know what the logic is behind that, but apparently it's just going to happen. Didn't look great through 3 quarters against the Giants. But again, at the end of the day, you'll look back at a week 1 score that's 21-6 and you'll say, okay, Washington handled the Giants. But how do you see this game tonight in Green Bay Packers with the chance to say, all right, we're here. We took on an NFC contender. We knocked out the Lions in Washington, and we're 2-0. But how do you see it for tonight?
Well, Sam, I picked the Packers to go to the Super Bowl. My Super Bowl pick was Buffalo over the Packers. Buffalo should have lost game one. I got a new podcast, little plug, Laying the Wood with Rod Woodson. He's the analyst. He's the analyst for the Ravens, travels with the Ravens.
It's great.
Ravens might be the best team in football, and they should add that win. I bring that up because Micah Parsons, the back in Oxnard, I thought he was faking that. He was ready to go. Jerry, that was his ploy. I'm going to lay on the bench. I don't feel right. I don't want to get fined, so I'll go. But when he got to Green Bay, the rumor was the back was a little bit tweaked, and he owned Penei Sewell, who's an all-pro, not a Pro Bowler. He owned him. So Washington doesn't have a player like Penei Sewell, not even close.
Nope.
So I believe because it's a home game, and again, how did the Packers get 2 home games against Detroit and Washington to start the year? I don't know. Also, a little inside baseball. Sterling Sharp, who I was at the Hall of Fame with, he got in with Eric Allen. He's getting his Hall of Fame ring tonight. Nice. They bring the Hall of Famers back. That's his night tonight. Crowd will be great. It's T-shirt weather. Fans will be going. I like Jaden Daniels a lot. Packers at home, just too much. I think they'll run it with Josh Jacobs. If this game was in Washington at the Commanders, I'd go Washington. I think the Packers win this game by 4. I think they find a way to get a late field goal to add on to their lead late, and they win the game. And I think it's going to be a great game. I mean, Al Michaels has got to be excited. He gets a good Thursday night game. Our friend Carissa gets a real good game compared to some of the dogs that they've had the last couple of years. This is the big one.
You know, Amazon has changed that, and I'm sure they're obviously chirping at the league about making sure that Thursday night isn't a throwaway anymore to just get a standalone game, you know, kind of under the rug. Now it's about having a marquee game, and this certainly feels like one. And frankly, it didn't change from week 1 into this. Both teams are 1-0. This game, you said 4 points. It's amazing how Las Vegas knows it's a 3.5-point line tonight. And so that makes perfect sense. I like it as a 4-point game. I see the Commanders being incredibly involved throughout this whole game. I like UC at the end, Green Bay establishing who they are and being the difference here. Although Washington is going to be here all season. I don't see this idea that Washington is going to fall off just because they were in a championship game last year and then year 2 they're not supposed to be as good. I don't see it like that. And Green Bay is clearly established as the team to beat in the North now, but tonight gives a great one. All right, JT, before we get out of here, the most important thing we do, and we don't like to keep JT more than 45 minutes. That's the rule, everybody. It's 45 minutes and out.
45 minutes for free. 45 minutes. No,
so
you know what the shirt's going to say? I want to stop you for a second. This is an inside joke because we're like brothers. We love each other. We're great friends. I listened to a podcast called Smartless. And Smartless is Jason Bateman, Sean Hayes, and Will Arnett. And it's 3 friends talking. And they're celebrities, and they talk. They sold their podcast to SiriusXM for $100 million. The podcast that I do with you now, but the one I do with Looney, my friend forever, is better than theirs. And we make like $11 a month. And I'm sitting there going, I do all this stuff with you because I get to see you. And this is the tip of the trade for down the road. Really important. The reason why I do these podcasts in the beginning and streams and they're building and they don't make a lot of money is because it's going to be my legacy. 20 years from now, when I'm not doing radio and I'm living my dream life, not working, I'm going to have a library of content that's going to stretch over 25 years. And then all that content's going to trigger financially, and I'm going to pass that money down to my kids and grandkids, and they're going to be wealthy. So that's it. Tip of the trade. What are we doing this time?
All right. So here we go, JT. That's a great tip. First of all, it's just about having great friends and supporting them throughout the years. And that kind of ties into what we're saying today with tips of the trade. Now, JT, we've said it many times. You got 30 years we're celebrating with the Raiders here. Pretty special. And by the way, think about that. When you think about you being with the team for 30 years, let's understand
28 years, 30 years on radio, 28 with the Raiders.
I like rounding up, but you're right. 28 years. But think about this. Think about this, JT. Different radio stations that the Raiders have been affiliated with, different cities that the Raiders have called home, different owners, technically, of the team. Forget about head coaches, regimes, quarterbacks, offenses ranked, playoff teams, Super Bowl appearances. To be with a team for that long is incredibly special, and that is why you are silver and black through and through. But I want to talk about this tip of the trade. Each week over these 28 years, you've understood that, yes, you get an inside look at the Raiders, and that helps prepare you each week to talk about the Raiders. But just as important at the Raiders each week is their opponent. The fans come to you because they want to understand, all right, the Raiders, is there an advantage this week? Are we going to be up against it? What does the other team have? There's certain things I know on paper, but what can you tell me that I don't already know? And you've understood over the years that the key to this is to find people in those cities. Now, sometimes they're people like you that are associated with the teams. Other times, they're just people that have been doing radio for decades in those cities and really understand not only the team, but the fan base, the heartbeat of the city. They might be able to say something about a coaching staff that a guy that maybe worked for the team couldn't say. You love finding the people that have a voice that represent the opposition. And that has stood out in preparing people, preparing yourself, getting your mind right, heading into a Thursday, Monday, or Sunday where the Raiders are taking on the Patriots, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Jets, whoever it's been over the years. I want you to set up a little bit of how you prepared for week one, and then set us up for a little what happens when you're taking on the Chargers with all your friends over the years. Forget about LA, the years in San Diego, and the friends that you have and the relationships over the years with the opponents of the Raiders.
Yeah, the San Diego Charger game to me was the favorite game of the year for me because I lived in San Diego, and I'd go there and I'd get a mini work vacation. You and I would go on a boat. On that boat would be a lot of entertainment and cocktails and fun. We'll leave it at that. I missed that trip. But the tip of the trade is I reach out to names on the other side. Some people call it behind the enemy line. So last week with the Patriots, Tom Curran, one of the biggest insiders in Boston history, Greg Bedard, a monster, and Andy Gresh. All three of those were booked weeks in advance to come on. Today with the Chargers, I have the franchise, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. I have Scott Kaplan, who's on ESPN in LA, covers that region. So when I have all my regulars on, my insiders, then I'm able to have another insiders, but that takes relationships. So the following week, they're at Washington, and I'll have 2 or 3 guys that I reach out to every 2 to 3 years. I book them in advance. I go on their shows, which is a little bit of extra work, but they come on my show. So the trade this week for sports radio is if you don't have a producer, if you don't have someone in your building that has a Rolodex, you better have me reaching out to the other team, their media director, and saying, hey, can I have your play-by-play voice on? Or calling a legend. When we play Washington, I already booked Joe Theismann. He's coming on. So I'm going to talk to Joe. And I think that enhances a radio show because you got to hear the other side. Yeah, the Raiders, when I do my Raiders show, which is coming up here in an hour, it's heavy Raiders. But I like to stop and say, wait, let's hear what the other team is doing.
Well, it's brilliant, and here's why it's brilliant. Number one, they aren't just relationships and guys that remember talking to you. You like to go a layer underneath. You like to make it about friendships. You like to really feel that you know these people. And over the years, not only are you talking on their show and having them on your show and you on their show, you've also, when you travel to these cities, you love to check out and get a sense of the local radio. Now, some you've just been a fan of over the years, but you love getting to a city, traveling to a city, whether it's with the Raiders or anywhere else, and identifying who's got the pulse of this city. You have taught me about the legends that came before us and what they've defined in certain cities. You were the first guy to point out Mike North at a Radio Row to me and said, that's the guy, Sam. You know about Mike and the Mad Dog, but in Chicago, this guy used to sell hot dogs. He's a fucking legend in this. And I remember I marked that day and said, wow, each city's got a Mike North, and JT understands how to know that guy because you always were interested in how did they get where they ended up and how have they kept their audience this long. And that's been the key.
Yeah. And I like that. I like talking to people in our industry that have respect for me and I have respect for them. And then you can do some good radio. And, you know, now we're crossing over and you're helping me a lot on how to put them on the stream so you can see them and do all that. And we're evolving with that. But to wrap it up with the Chargers, as Al Davis once said, and Drew knows this, the quarterback must go down. In the first 15 plays, the quarterback must go down. Now we're living in this soft NFL society that happened right before us. We don't kick off anymore because we don't want anybody to tackle someone with a running start. Well, we're not allowed to tell the coach, or we can't surprise the coach in the first quarter with an onside kick. No. Someone might get a concussion. We have to tell the coach that we're going to onside kick. But I can tell you this, I don't want anybody to get hurt. No injuries. I'm not predicting injuries. Justin Herbert needs to go down hard. No 15-yard penalty. I'm not saying personal foul, roughing. He needs to release the ball and get drilled in the ribs and piled into the ground so he knows that Max Crosby's in the building. He knows he's there. But the only way to beat Herbert, who wears that diaper around his chin, and I love that. That's my new thing. I want credit for that. Everybody has a chin strap. It used to be, Aaron Rodgers has this little chin strap, little one. He puts it around his chin. Justin Herbert has a diaper. Someone gives him a Pampers diaper and they fold it and he puts it under his chin so you can't see him. And he has a diaper. That's what I call it, the diaper. And the diaper does what? It protects his jaw. Give me a break. You're playing football. So when next time you see Herbert with that close up with that diaper around his chin, let him know we're coming to get him.
I love that. We will forever remember the diaper. And I hope Scott Kaplan is seeing this as well. So Scott Kaplan is a dear friend of ours. Not only does he still goes back and forth from San Diego to LA. So he understands the Chargers, both the San Diego piece and the LA piece. He knows it true and true. And there is always a friendly little wager, just a friendly one, between you and Scott Kaplan when it's Raiders and Chargers week. Yeah. And we got a big one on Monday Night Football. JT, thank you so much for being here. Thank all of you for being at JT the Brick on YouTube. Thanks for being here at Thinking Out Loud, Siciliano and Sam on YouTube as well. Thanks for being live on Instagram with us at Sam Betesh. Please like and subscribe at both of these channels. Please give us the love so that we can keep giving you great content like this. And one day we will turn $11, JT, into a $100 million contract. All right. We're not that far off. We're not that far behind. You and Looney keep cranking it and we will get there.
I don't need the money now. I'm doing very well. I want the free bonus, big Powerball ticket, podcast money down the road. Love you, Sammy. I'll be on Raider Nation Radio at noon Pacific. JT the Brick, YT. I don't know why it's YT, but YT stands for YouTube. I guess some scoundrel stole JT the Brick. I'm JT the Brick. Rhymes with Knicks. Jim Rome named me that. Come join me at noon Pacific on YouTube.
I love it, JT. We will see you later, and we can't wait for Monday Night Football in Vegas.